Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs in their Week 12 matchup played November 29th, 2015. We're going to go over every possession and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. So starting off, the Bills would get the ball first and they would move it into Kansas City territory as Tyrod Taylor hit Sammie Watkins for a 48-yard pass that brought the ball from the Buffalo 37 all the way down to the Kansas City 15. So Buffalo was in the red zone, but they were not able to get it into the end zone. And on 4th and 4 from the 9, Dan Carpenter came out to attempt a 27-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and it was 3-0 Buffalo over Kansas City. The Chiefs would end up punting after 4 plays on their first possession, and so the Bills would get the ball back after the punt on their own 34, and they would bring the ball up to midfield and into Kansas City territory, but on 1st and 10 from the 34, LaShawn McCoy fumbled the ball as he was hit by Dontari Poe. It was recovered by Howard, and so now the Chiefs would take back over. So Kansas City got the ball back about midway through the first quarter, but they would go 3 and out on the ensuing possession as they were not able to turn the fumble into points on the scoreboard. So they ended up punting the ball, and they gave it back to Buffalo. So the Bills would take over on their own 35 after the punt with a little over 5 minutes left in the first quarter, and they would end up moving the ball towards midfield and into Kansas City territory. They got down to the Kansas City 28. That's when Tyrod Taylor hit Sammie Watkins for a 28-yard touchdown, and Dan Carpenter added the extra point, and it was now 10-0 Buffalo over Kansas City with about a minute left in the first quarter. And earlier in the quarter, Howard had left the game, and he did not return. And so now the Kansas City would get the ball back after that touchdown, and they would bring the first quarter to a close, and then they ended up going 3 and out on the possession. So now Buffalo would get the ball, and after 8 plays, they would punt, and so now the Chiefs would take over with about 9 minutes left before halftime, and they had the ball near midfield on their own 48, and they picked up a first down, and then Alex Smith went to Jeremy Maclin, and he nearly got into the end zone as he kind of slid on the catch, but it was a 37-yard reception that would set the Chiefs up on the 3-yard line, and Spencer Ware got it into the end zone for a 3-yard touchdown run. Cairo Santos added the extra point, and it was now 10-7 as the Chiefs had cut the Bills' lead to 3. So now Buffalo would respond with a scoring drive of their own as they started off with the ball on their own 25. They brought it to midfield and into Kansas City territory. They would convert on a 3rd and 6 from the Kansas City 44 when Taylor went to Watkins for a 33-yard reception as Sammie Watkins was having a really big game. And now it was a first down in the red zone for the Bills at the Kansas City 11. A penalty would push them back to their Kansas City 21, and on 2nd and 20, though, Tyrod Taylor goes back to Sammie Watkins for a 21-yard touchdown. Carpenter added the extra point, and it was 16-7. Actually, the extra point was no good, and so it was 16-7 with the Bills up by 9 with about 2.5 minutes left to play. Kansas City came right back as these two teams were trading touchdowns on these possessions, and the Chiefs would score after just a couple plays as Jeremy Maclin caught a 41-yard touchdown pass from Alex Smith, and Cairo Santos would add the extra point, and it was now a 2-point game with the score Buffalo 16, Kansas City 14 with just under 2 minutes left to play before halftime. The Bills would go 3 and out on their next possession, so now Kansas City would get the ball back with about a minute left in the first half, and they would bring the ball into Buffalo territory, and on the final play of the first half, Cairo Santos would attempt a 54-yard field goal, but it hit the crossbar, and Santos' longest in his career is 53 yards. He had hit a 51-yarder earlier in this season, but here with the 54-yarder, He just narrowly missed as it hit the bottom crossbar, the one that goes across, and it was no good. So it just bounced back. If it had bounced over, then it would have been good, but it did not. And so it was 16-14 at halftime. So now the Chiefs would get the ball first in the second half. They got a nice return on the opening kickoff of the second half, as Nile Davis ran it back 36 yards to the 36. And they would get into Buffalo territory, went on 2nd and 11 from their own 49. Alex Smith went to Jeremy Maclin. He picked up 32 yards to bring the ball to the red zone at the Buffalo 19. And then they ended up with a 2nd and 6 from the 15, and Alex Smith hit the tight end Travis Kelce for the 15-yard touchdown. Kelce did the Quan, and so then Santos added the extra point, and now the Chiefs were in the lead for the first time in this game, as they were up by 5 with the score Chiefs 21, Bills 16, with still over 11 minutes left in the third. So now the Bills would get the ball after the touchdown. They would start off on the 25, and on 3rd and 6 from the 39, after having picked up a first down. This on 3rd and 6, Tyrod Taylor was sacked by Tamba Hali. He forced the fumble. It was recovered by Dontari Poe. And so now the Chiefs would take over, and they would end up with a 49-yard field goal by Cairo Santos. And now they extended their lead to 8 points with the score Kansas City 24, Buffalo 16. So now the Bills, after the field goal, would get the ball. They would march down the field and into Kansas City territory. And on 3rd and 9, Taylor went to Hogan. He picked up 12 yards, and a penalty for roughing the passer would end up in with a 1st and goal on the 10-yard line for Buffalo. Tyrod Taylor then went to Shady, LaShawn McCoy, and he scored on a 10-yard catch. And now they went for 2, but Taylor was sacked, and so they did not get the 2-point conversion. So they trailed by 2 with the score Kansas City 24, Buffalo 22, with just over 3 minutes still left in the third. So now the Chiefs would get the ball, and they would bring the third quarter to a close, and they would open up the fourth in Buffalo territory as they got to the very edge of the red zone, but they were not able to pick up a first down, so they would end up with a 38-yard field goal attempt by Cairo Santos from the 20, and so Santos kicks it through, and now it was 27-22 as the Chiefs were back up by 5 as they extended their lead. So now Buffalo would get the ball, and they would end up punting after 6 plays, and this was actually with about 13 minutes still left in the game, and so they ended up punting the ball, and so now Kansas City took over after the punt with about 10 minutes left to play, and they started with it on their own 11, and Ware would run it 35 yards all the way to the 46 for a first down, and then they brought the ball into Buffalo territory. They got down to the 12-yard line, but a penalty for holding pushed them back to the 22 as they were faced with a 1st and 22. They weren't able to get a first down, and they would end up having to settle for a 37-yard field goal. Santos kicked it through the uprights, and it was now 30-22 as the Chiefs extended their lead to 8. So now the Bills had 3.5 minutes to get a touchdown and the 2-point conversion if they wanted to tie this one and send it into overtime. They started off with the ball on their own 10-yard line after the kickoff, and so now they tried to get the ball going, but they couldn't get anywhere as they were not able to get past their own 21, and they were faced with a 4th and 9 with just over 2 minutes left, and they went for it. Taylor ended up trying to pick up the first down on the ground as no one was open, and he ended up fumbling the ball. Taylor picked up the fumble, and he ended up almost getting the first down. He kind of fumbled it a second time almost out of bounds, but it was ruled that he actually did not get the first down. He was ruled down on the field, and so they turned the ball over on downs, and now the Chiefs will get the ball with just over 2 minutes left in this game. They brought the game to the 2-minute warning, and they ran out the rest of the clock, and this game would come to a close with Alex Smith taking a knee in the victory formation. So the Chiefs come from behind, and they ended up winning this game. They took the lead in the second half, early on in the third, and then they rode it out as they were able to fend off the Bills in the fourth. Of course, Santos adding a couple of field goals there. And now the Chiefs, with the 30-22 victory, are 6-5 on the season, 3-2 at home, as they've won 5 straight since starting the season, 1-5. And the Bills are now 5-6 with the loss. They're 3-3 on the road. And this is a really big game with playoff implications, as the Chiefs right now, as it stands, they are in the playoffs if the season ended today. And now with this, if the season ended today, Buffalo would be out of the playoffs just narrowly with the loss. So when they look back at this one, if the Bills miss the playoffs, this could be kind of the game that really cost them. And this is a big win for Kansas City. And in this game, Alex Smith, 19 for 30, 255 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He also had 6 carries for 35 yards on the ground as well. Ware had 19 carries for 114 yards and a rushing touchdown. Spencer Ware also had 3 catches but only 1 yard receiving. Jeremy Maclin had 9 catches for 160 yards and a touchdown. So he had a really big day. Travis Kelce, the tight end, had 4 receptions for 69 yards and a touchdown. And for Buffalo, Tyrod Taylor, T-Mobile, 21 for 38, 291 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 5 carries for 46 yards. LaShawn Shady McCoy, 19 carries for 70 yards. McCoy also had 3 catches for 31 yards, including a touchdown reception, as he had 101 total yards on the day. Sammie Watkins also had a phenomenal game, 6 catches for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. And of course, the next receiver for Buffalo, Hogan, had just 3 catches for 34 yards, and the tight end Charles Clay, 5 receptions for 31 yards. Then we look at the kickers, Cairo Santos, 33 for 4 on the field goals. Of course, he missed that 54-yard attempt that just hit the crossbar. And then 3 for 3 on the extra points. And Dan Carpenter, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 1 for 2 on the extra points. And on defense for Kansas City, Tamba Hali with a sack. He also had a forced fumble. And Dontari Poe had a forced fumble as well. And for Buffalo, Tarpley had a sack. Let me look at the team stats. 25 first downs for the Bills, 21 first downs for the Chiefs. On third down, the Chiefs were 6 of 13, 46% converted, and the Bills 5 of 12 on third down for 41% conversion rate. They went for it once on fourth down. They did not convert. Of course, that was that final play on offense for the Bills. And then we look at total net yards, 415 for the Bills, 413 for the Chiefs, and total net rushing yards, 158 for Kansas City, 129 for Buffalo. Net passing yards, 286 for the Bills. Tyrod Taylor sacked once for a loss of 5 yards. And for the Chiefs, 255 netted through the air. Alex Smith sacked once, not losing any yards. And we look at penalties, 9 penalties against the Bills, 91 penalty yards, 8 penalties against the Chiefs for just 58 penalty yards. The Bills had 3 fumbles in this game. They recovered 1, they lost 2. And then we look at the red zone, and in the red zone, Buffalo was 2 for 3, 66%, and Kansas City 2 for 4, 50%. In the time of possession, 30 minutes, 32 seconds for the Bills, 29 minutes, 28 seconds for the Chiefs. And this was a really tight game, a really close game. It came down to the wire. Early on, it looked like Buffalo was going to take this one. They jumped out that 10-0 lead early on. Sammie Watkins was having quite the game. Of course, he got a second touchdown, and they went up 16-7. But then the Chiefs just would not lay down. They kept coming back. It was Jeremy Maclin and Sammie Watkins, both just incredible performances from that receiver position on opposite sides. And Maclin, with that big score that brought him within 2 right before halftime, and then they come right out in the second half and start things off in their opening possession with the touchdown to Travis Kelce, and then Santos with those 3 field goals in the second half as they continued to take advantage of the opportunities. Their defense was playing really good in the second half, exceptionally well. They did let up that 1 touchdown, Taylor to McCoy, but that would be the only score they let up in the second half, just 6 points. And they were able to, once they took the lead, keep the lead there in the second half and fend off the Bills. They said in the first half it looked like Buffalo was going to take this one. Of course, in the final 2 minutes, Kansas City closed the gap, and then they just closed this game out strong. In this rainy game there in Kansas City, it was pretty muddy and wet, and it was football weather there in Kansas City, and it was quite the football game. It was definitely a fun one to watch. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great week and had a great weekend and a happy holiday and enjoyed all the sports.